Welcome to today's webinar. It's the first in our episode of After the Crossroads, which was Youth at the Crossroads. And this series, and this being episode number 1, will be featuring AI in our future, with the introductory episode, this one, mapping the AI landscape with an overview of how machine intelligence is shaping our future. Our guests are Ken Bainey, and I guess I can call him his son. He's probably as proud of his son, Kristian, both of whom have extensive experience. One more with government and academia, that's Ken, and the other more in the corporate sector, that's Kristian. We've also got an intergenerational difference there, and whether or not that's relevant for this topic, we'll probably find out in the course of the discussion. So let me begin with an overview. Artificial intelligence may be the most transformative development since the invention of the wheel or the printing press. The rapid global pursuit of accessible superintelligence marks a historical inflection point, one that raises profound questions about the future of mankind, productivity, power, and purpose. For centuries, economies and identities were built on the pursuit of knowledge. Learning drove progress. The pursuit of knowledge, universities grew, PhDs became relevant. Knowing was essential to both survival and meaning. But now, as AI systems begin to perform and even outperform humans in knowledge-based tasks, we're witnessing a dramatic shift in what it means to be relevant. Is this the beginning of the end of human cognitive value, or the beginning of something even greater, a future where knowledge is foundational, but creativity, innovation, and empathy define human distinction? Some argue that we're entering a creative economy, and where the merging of art and science recalls the spirit of Leonardo da Vinci. Others warn of a future where knowing is no longer enough and may no longer be ours to own as humans. And so in the course of this webinar, I'm going to be interviewing Ken and Kristian about their views of AI and how it's shaping our future. And the first question I have I'll pose it to Ken. From your unique vantage point, you're a seasoned systems architect with Kristian, a leading edge AI practitioner. How, Ken, would you map AI's current reach across our society? What surprised you most about the speed or direction of AI's integration into work, life, and culture? That's a pretty wide open introduction, but let's hear what you have to say about AI and its relevance today.
Okay, thanks for the warm welcome and the introduction. And what a great question to start us, get it started. And mapping AI's reach and what surprises me. From where I sit, my experiences, as someone who remembers the punch card era, what surprises me isn't just how fast AI is evolving, but how quickly and completely AI has woven itself into our everyday life. Okay? Seriously, think about it. From healthcare to traffic systems to education, it's everywhere. How deeply AI, and specifically generative AI, has embedded itself into every sector of our society. Now, I'll talk about Alberta. Here in Alberta, we are not just watching how AI progresses. We are shaping it. The $100 million motor vehicles modernization project is a great example. This project is using AI not just to speed things up, but to actually rethink how government delivers services. Chatbot, AI agents, answering questions, predictive analytics. AI identifies issues before they happen. Real-time triage support. That is a change. Now, the other one the government of Alberta Open AI portal, which is championed by Deputy Minister Janak Alpha, and the provinces dedicated the AI data center are other clear signals that Alberta isn't just reacting. They are building for leadership. Alberta is stepping up to lead and not follow. Here is a statement from Janak Alpha. By using AI generated automation, our forms, tools, methodology will be open source. Following the footsteps of the Singapore government and UK government, there is a software called Superbinder. Okay, and we are not only scratching the surface. AI will transform consulting as we know it, reshaping how consulting services will be delivered and who will deliver them. It will disrupt and likely destroy the traditional software as a service business model, replacing static subscription-based tools with adaptive, dynamic, intelligent systems that evolve in real time. Something you should think about. What's really changing is this. AI isn't an add-on model anymore. It's becoming the core operating layer for how decisions get made in healthcare, education, and government. That's the huge shift from when I was the CIA, where transformation meant automation, digitizing form. Today, today it means reimagining the entire workflow with AI integration from the start. We have moved from digitizing forms to re-imaging systems from the ground up. But here is the heart of it. AI takes imagination, and imagination takes experience. It's not about data or algorithm. It's about how we apply them creatively and ethically. We are moving from the information age to the transformation age, from the information age to the intelligent age, where success depends less on access to information and more on how wisely, ethically, and effectively we use it intelligently. So that's the big difference. And some people worry about AI replacing jobs or AI taking control of our lives. AI still needs human imagination, and imagination comes from experience. We are not replacing people. We are just giving them better tools to create, lead, and innovate. So yeah, I am surprised, but in a hopeful way. AI's reach is broader, faster, and more impactful than many of us expected. Now I'll pass over to Kristian for some real-time decision making in today's digital projects. Kristian?
No, that was good. It was a very good broad overview there. What did AI is showing up obviously almost everywhere in our lives and in business. Over half of the companies around the world are using some form of AI, right? Because it doubled between the 2017 to 2022, and it's been steady since. The benchmark actually year is 2030, where it's going to be extremely efficient and life-changing in the sense of being more superhuman. So they say. So we'll see what happens and when that time comes here. But right now is AI as we speak right now, its main purpose for everyday usage for business leaders and society development and everything is it is there to save time, right? And to cut work time. So it's really surprising that it isn't really surprising that how fast AI has spread, but how far it's gone, right? So think about it a bit like in music, movies, and even schools, of course. AI is everywhere. Half of The Canadian students aged what was 12 to 18, under 18 years old, have used ChatGPT to help with homework, but often without teachers or parents even knowing about it. So there's definitely a transition that needs to happen with the education system on teaching adults or pedagogy or anagogy in the era of usage of AI and being more creative instead of just having repetition work that's produced for you without you not even knowing what happens. I'll give you an example. I have a friend, which is a pretty good example. I teach at university as well too, and he asked everybody, he had an assignment, right? Everybody has their laptops and phones and whatnot, and they said, you know, create tell me a little bit more about the subject. So the subject on anything, right? And within like 30 minutes, people have written down and printed out what they wanted to give to the professor. And after the professor looked at it, I mean, using the same AI model can be biased, so it looked very familiar. So what he did was he asked everybody now to give a synopsis or a summary of what they just wrote without using their laptops or without using their phones, and you have 15 minutes. So when they got the reports back in pen and paper, like 90% of people had no idea what they just handed up before. So hence that just proves that people can be misusing, a lot of people can be misusing, especially in the education system, AI, and that instructors need to be trained on it. My belief is again, it's more of AI's comforts to save time and money, not from creating new jobs or major revenue growth, but companies have mostly used AI to cut costs, like of course customer service, HR work. Example, IBM, and you probably read about it, replaced a few hundred HR staff with AI. So big tech firms like Microsoft and Google now say over 25%, even if their code is written, they've said this many times on the internet, that it's been written by AI, which is awesome because and they create these tools that make it a lot simpler for the developers, so you can customize a lot more and be more productive. But all this can feel like a trade-off, but getting more done with fewer people instead of actually growing the economy is another question. So the real challenge now is to shifting AI from being just a tool, from cutting costs, into something that fuels creativity, ideas, jobs, and of course our industries and our culture, being a multidisciplinary approach. Multidisciplinary approach meaning utilizing AI with responsible AI, with societal human impact. So a multidisciplinary approach is definitely the way to go without to cut down on any type of biasness or people misusing AI for that specific reason. I'll leave it at that.
Well, thank you. I mean, you walked right into the second point that I was going to probe, and that was the initial take-up of AI by corporate sector, and certainly Doge in the U.S. With
Hmm.
the was to increase the efficiency of work, but not to create new opportunities or grow revenue at the corporate sector. It was more to save money rather than make money.
Hmm.
And clearly, if AI in the long haul is going to make the big difference, it has to. You don't make a living by just saving money. And so sooner or
Exactly.
later, corporations have to begin to learn, and I think that's the point you're making, Christian, on how
It,
to
it,
use AI in sales and marketing. Okay, well, I'm going to jump to the next question. AI is being embedded in domains that traditionally rely on human connection, like healthcare and education, social services. From your work with AI embedded triage and project management, what are the risks of losing human empathy in the pursuit of efficiency? So here we're talking about the lack of, quote, humanness, empathy in AI and what implications it has for professions that are opting to be based on knowledge, but not necessarily on a appreciation of the whole person. Kristen, I'm going to start out with you, and then I'll go to Ken.
Yeah, sure. So that's an excellent question. It's quite exciting too. First, to let you know the opportunity, what's driving right now. It's focusing on AI is focusing on helping people, not replacing them. Because the first thing that people need to know is that even when you mentioned sales and marketing, when I do pitches all the time for angel investors and investors all over Canada. and for the projects that I'm working on in healthcare. And the number one thing that I noticed, and which is very good, and I'm glad that these leaders and CEOs are noticing this, is that they will lose your attention right away if you talk about AI at the very beginning. If you talk about your product and you say, this is AI driven, AI, this is what AI can do. Great. That's great, but you lost the audience. What people have to remember is that AI is there to enhance the ability of human intelligence, being a human. What can you offer me? What can the human do? And what can you do for my business that makes you unique? Now, can AI enhance that and make it even better? Then sure, tell me how that works too. But going straight into AI, which people do that right now without any training, that's just getting like a robot to do your work for you and not really being unique. Now, let me give you some examples of bringing AI, which I have this project I'm working on in Alberta Health for prostate cancer, and bringing AI into like healthcare, education, social services. I'll give a healthcare one where human connections really matter, right? Can come with serious risks, right? Obviously, I've worked in AI tools in these fields, and while they do improve efficiency, they also can make people feel ignored and misunderstood, which is a huge risk. Let me give you an example of something that I've researched before. So take healthcare. An AI chatbot might collect symptoms faster than a nurse, right? Let's say a nurse or doctor. But if it gives robotic or cold responses, a patient can feel dismissed. Makes sense? This gets dangerous when emotions are high. For example, in 2025, a Stanford report showed that some AI mental health bots completely missed serious red flags. So one bot gave a list of New York tallest buildings when a user hinted at suicidal thoughts. So a human wouldn't see that as a cry for help. The AI didn't, right? So a human would know that this is a cry for help, but the AI didn't, and the AI went off and talked about New York's tallest bridges. I wonder. This is a Stanford report that came out this year. So in education, AI tutors can personalize learning, but they can't replace the emotional support and motivation that teachers provide. So as a teacher myself, I know when a student is struggling, needs encouragement, or just needs to be heard, or just to need to be known, and that motivates them. So AI might help a student pass a test, but it can't inspire or build confidence the way a human can, and to encourage them and have empathy. And if the students know the feedback that they're getting is from a machine, it will not mean as much, and they will not be more motivated to do work. People always know that, to build a team in project management is to motivate your team. That more motivation you give, the better they're probably going to work. Are they really going to listen to a machine to be motivated? No, that's like using ChatGPT as your psychiatrist. I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but I mean, you could get a lot of hints, but what people are really looking is for the human touch, right? And so
So
that's what
if the professions, and not just healthcare, but from architecture to
yes,
engineering to
of
education,
course.
uh, knowledge becomes a commodity in the hands of the professional, the
Mhm.
differentiation among professionals becomes their capacity to demonstrate relational skills. And that's illustrated in the new curriculums in medicine, for example. But
Mm,
in the book in back of me that I've referenced numerous times by the Rabinovich, father and son, they talk about the future of the professions and make exactly that point, which we've made numerous times in our webinars, that empathy and the capacity to know the client is not to know them as a slave, but to know them as a partner. And that we talked about that in education, where teachers in future may more display the features of a tutor than a knowledge conveyor. Ken, you want to add anything further to what Kristian has to say or challenge it in some way?
Well, what I wanted to emphasize is, can AI replace empathy? Because AI is stepping into areas like, same thing, education and human connection. But what I wanted to share with you is my triage system. The healthcare, I, in Alberta, I created an AI enhanced triage system. And I had some issues with OpenAI. And here was the issue. Um, To be fully transparent in my own work in developing this AI enhanced triad system, I encountered various concerns from OpenAI. OpenAI raised privacy, biasness, and ethical concerns about my model, which resulted in they temporarily blocking public access to my AI agent. These are valid concerns, and I'm actively working to address them. And what I'm trying to say is it's a reminder that every breakthrough in AI, there is also responsibility to ensure there is ethics, security, and fair deployment, especially in the domains like health and 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 legal affairs.
You're not alone in your concerns. One would hope that the industry in its evolution is learning from some of its shortcomings, which Kristian has pointed to, and you've echoed as well. And I heard this morning that Sam Altman, on behalf of OpenAI, announced significant modifications to how AI answers emotional appeals in its questions, and instead of answering them, provides more empathy and direct and not direction, but initiates process. So it's not as if the system is stopped; it's evolving, and you've both pointed out areas where it's necessary, and it appears to be adapting. So you've both been instrumental in developing and delivering AI education in post-secondary settings. How ready have you found students, professionals, institutions in general to lead in this AI-saturated world? What gaps concern you most? And I think we've already begun to identify one of them, and that is a lack of recognition that AI as a knowledge-based system is not necessarily correct in how it responds to information that has an empathy base. But Kristian, I'll call on you for starters again.
Right. And now, and this is, you can quote me on this, is what I firmly believe is that an AI will never in our lifetime, and I don't even see it past our lifetime ever, having empathy like a human does. This human has human touch from where we've been created, right? AI will never have empathy. But what does empathy mean for AI? This is different. So AI will never have empathy, but AI will always can and is designed to recognize empathy. So when Sam Altman is saying this, I think what he's trying to say as well too is that when the data scientists are making these algorithms and whatnot, the AI should be designed to recognize when empathy is needed and when to back off, right? So that makes sense, like, because it can recognize empathy, but then give it to the human to give that human touch, right? So that's what it's really where empathy is coming in towards robotics and empathy in the future for AI. So that's firmly what I believe. Now in education, people are wanting to learn, right? Universities, institutes, they want to definitely put in some type of courses that are being done to train the professors to how to teach their class on it, because the biggest gap is cheating, right? Misuse of the tool, and could be well, not so much plagiarism, but well, it could be plagiarism as well too, if you quote a certain book or anything and then say to quote it from there without referencing it. But that's where the gap is. So the biggest thing for schools right now, because the biggest industry in AI is healthcare, and the second is education. And because education is the new generation coming up, everyone's going to be using it regardless. The professors and the teachers and everybody, they need to understand what this tool can do and how we can utilize it to teach our students in that era. It's going to be a new era. It's not just going to be, here's your course outline and then go study this and read the book and then write the test, because that's what we did before. But now you can and write papers, but now you can write papers using these AI agents and AI chatbots and everything. And but what you need to know is that how can professors and teachers know if people are misusing the tool? Now, there are definitely ways. There's a ways to identify. I teach this as well too in my presentations. Identify just by looking. In 5 seconds, I could look at a paper And in 5 seconds, I could definitely tell you if it's probably 75% AI. There's a lot of biasness in different models too. So you have to know Gemini, ChatGPT, um, Claude 2, their responses are all similar in their biasness, but they're different to the other models. If you mix all of them, then it will be kind of hard, but then you might as well just write the paper like from scratch yourself because it might be mixing up ideas, right? Because it's two models thinking differently. But how what I suggest is that there definitely needs to be training in how to identify if it is an AI tool doing it. Now, AI enhancing it is great. If you're writing a paper and it's 15%, this is my rule of thumb I have in my book. If it's 15% or less that's created by AI, that's fine. That is fine. That's because it's just structuring it better, it's making you understand it better, it's wording it a little bit better with grammar. But all the other percentage there, if you can notice that that is human touch and that is from the human input, then that's great. Because a lot of the times I write, we all write emails and long emails, and we're like, oh, can you put a more empathetic tone on it and everything? It's your content, it's your ideas. AI just took 15% of it, right? And they just made structured it better, and it just sounds a lot better than maybe that when you would write it. And you would probably know the next time you write an email what it did, and you should learn from it and not just accept it and say and hand it over. But the main thing is to learn from it from the outputs on there. So that's what I see the schools doing now. I see it being very slow in Canada. I definitely see that being extremely slow in Canada for institutions where the professors are not being as trained as fast as they should be in all institutes on what I just suggested on AI. Now, there's a lot of schools that are doing it right now. For example, there's a session next week, beginning of next week, that I'm doing and other people are doing at MacEwan. And MacEwan are having a course on how to teach their professors or instructors the utilization of AI and detection of misuse of it. So that is a serious thing that needs to be executed as quickly as possible.
My takeaway here, and it was echoed in our series on youth, is that education must start putting a focus on learning instead of just the conveying of knowledge.
That's right.
Uh, Ken, you want to take over from here? Anything you want to add?
At McEwan University, I'll tell you, we teaching a capstone project with Randall as one of the sponsors. At McEwan University, I see a lot of excitement from the students. They're eager to use AI tools like ChatGPT and other tools.
Everybody is.
Find this capstone project that the students built with myself. We built an AI strategy, AI agent. Very cool stuff. But the truth is, outside of the tech circles, a lot of professionals and even faculty members are still unsure of what AI is really is.
Yeah.
So we've highlighted right from the beginning that AI's early adoption and profound and deep and wide adoption has been focused more on efficiency than on creativity and making profits. Shifted into education and the relevance of learning versus simply knowledge conveyance, which was echoed on our youth series. But what about leadership? I mean, these tools and the capacity of leaders to make a difference, to create following, to help people make the transitions for an improved civilization or an improved corporation. If AI is both a tool and a test of leadership, what qualities do you believe tomorrow's leaders must develop in light of the adoption of AI, not only to harness AI's potential, but to preserve human agency, ethics, and resilience in the face of constant disruption?
Okay.
Ken, go ahead.
On the technical expertise, okay, I believe the leaders, they have to be technical. There's no question about that one. And you could see an example of Janek being a technically competent leader. Beyond that, ethically grounded, the courage to ask the right questions, okay? Adaptable and is able to lead through this disruption. It's always changing. Human-centered, using AI to empower, not to replace people. Okay.
So to ask questions is not a tyranny or not an or a authoritarian dictator. Authoritarian dictators and tyrants tell you, they don't ask you.
That's
One of
it.
the primary differentiators between leaders in the last century, the Gandhis of this world, the Eisenhowers, the Churchills, where they engaged the citizens to feel that they were empathetic. Eisenhower was notorious about the troops in the trenches feeling that he was with them and that he understood and was sympathetic, as was Churchill for those who were weathering the bombings of London. So you point out a critical differentiator between authoritarian leadership, which AI could empower with all the knowledge that it has about who you are. It can fragment you as a doctor would into specialists on every pieces of your body, but miss completely the whole person. Kristian, I know I've echoed a sentiment there
Yeah.
that you may or may not empathize with, but what's your view, Kristian? What do leaders need in the
Yeah.
future?
Yeah, simply put, traditional leadership. So, simply put, leaders in the future needs values like they need to know ethics, empathy, and personal intervention. These are interpersonal skills. They need to have ethics, empathy, and personal intervention. The leaders who succeed in the new era will need both the traditional leadership skills that they have, obviously, and the new skills. The new skills being a combination of knowing what AI is, clear vision of tech awareness, the ethics, the empathy part, personal intervention, making sure that your organization and the human side of your organization is always just as powerful as the tool or even more. I emphasized ethics and empathy a lot, which is very good, and to encourage transparency and trust. So transparency and trust mean that you have to have some type of knowledge on responsible AI, not just the tech side of things, but responsible AI. So responsible AI includes empathy, biasness, and transparency, like why AI is being used, what it does, what checks are in place. Do we have some type of I don't know, some type of model that we use to make sure that we're not going past a human intervention, like I said. Like, are we ready to scale it? If not, we're not ready to scale it, then you're not ready to use the AI. Does your CEO know about AI and what it does? Does your leaders know about AI and what it does? If they don't and you have their staff doing it, that is absolutely not the right, correct way to do it. That's like how Bill Gates said a long time ago, if your organization is not ready for innovative software, then it can destroy it if you're just using it and not understanding how it plays out. And this is way before AI or generative AI was introduced to the world here. So that is my mix on the leadership. It's a mix of traits, like I said.
So in some ways, and I'm not being negative here, but in some ways, AI is simply elevated something that we've always known had value.
Mm-hmm.
Women don't go searching for a husband, and a husband doesn't go searching for a wife based on whether they got a PhD or not.
Mm-hmm.
When we did research, when I was leading the Alberta Council of Technologies, and we visited chambers of commerce to understand why AI or why companies, small companies in particular, were failing to grow. And it
Mm-hmm.
turned out the weak relational skills. It wasn't that they didn't have good engineering and good knowledge of product. They had very weak relational skills, and they depended upon buyers and to understand who they were, who their staff were. So in some ways, what AI is really doing is emphasizing something we've always known. He who knows his customer best has no competition. Um, the values of relational skills. So
It can't help with that. Like you said, all those dating apps have generative AI within it. If you put it in an algorithm and it has a generative AI where a PhD living in South Africa, the age of this or whatnot, they can narrow it down, not just like how your Netflix does your movies and stuff. So it is there to definitely give you suggestions.
well, they are fragmenting you down into the point that they know you so well, they know what your
Yeah,
appeals are, what you want to buy.
right,
And what are the consequences of that? If the dating is now more efficient and more effective, and they in fact get a higher of consummated relationships, AI would say we're doing a good job, even though we
right,
don't know or feel that relationship.
right.
Okay, guys. We obviously have not covered everything. We certainly couldn't in the 40 minutes. Is there anything further you want to add, Ken, that we haven't covered yet about AI and its ramifications for the future?
Um, what I wanted to make sure is that to understand AI, people think is no longer a tool, and you mentioned that it's the leadership, the ethics, and the foresight is what is okay. We have to look at that. It's not really a tool. Yes, it is not no longer just the tool. Okay, the leadership has to understand ethics and
So
foresight.
can that be taught? I mean, universities and teachers convey knowledge. Can you teach empathy? Can you teach ethics? Can you introduce philosophy into the world of education so that people get a better appreciation of the relevance of being human?
Yeah, so I think we need philosophers. We need great philosophers at the table. Philosophers, people who can think about consequences, people who can think about long-term impacts. I think that is okay. That is
Maybe Plato will be back again. Christian, you want to add anything further that we haven't touched on?
Yeah, I think it's quite so again, AI is not just another tool like Ken was saying, it must be managed with care, obviously, a responsible AI, biasness, and strong human intelligence, right? There's AI and there's human intelligence. But what we didn't talk about, which is kind of good to know, is that how are we going to regulate everything? How is everything going to be regulated in the world? What's happening today? So, with government researchers, they must work together, obviously, with clear rules, safety checks, and ethical standards. So, thankfully, right now we are starting to see this in action. So, the EU is working on an AI law, and the World Economic Forum has launched a global AI governance alliance. If you didn't know, what is Canada doing? Canada has the first AI minister, which is quite neat. And Canada has the Artificial Intelligence and Data Act. So that's the AIDA, if you ever want to look that up. The Artificial Intelligence Data Act. It's the government's first major step toward regulating AI. It's part of the Bill C-27, focusing on high impact areas like healthcare, justice, and public safety. So these efforts are encouraging, but we need more of them and we need them fast, such as other countries like China are doing it extremely quickly. But I'm glad to hear that Canada does have a great Artificial Intelligence Data Act that's in, again, Bill C-27, and it's about healthcare, justice, and safety. So if you ever want to, whoever's listening on this cast, if they ever want to look that up, it's quite interesting to read about. So because that's probably our number one regulation that the whole government is working on right now.
Thanks, Christian. Both you bring to mind something that I'm well aware of, is that in healthcare, and that is in medicine, the recruitment of students into faculties of medicine is no longer driven simply by the smartest. They also research your relational skills. And that's the bedside manner element that we were talking about in a world where knowledge is a commodity, and human beings expect a relationship. They're actually screening students into medicine now, taking into consideration their capacity to demonstrate empathy and understanding, and not just to break the body into its specialized parts. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to look for hands now.
Yes, Bainey, thank you. Thank you for the presentation, gentlemen. You covered some very interesting ground that I also happen to believe in much of what you said. I'm an academic as well as an international business consultant. I've been involved in AI for over 40 years. Bill C-27's dead. It died on the order paper when Parliament was prorogued. So what
Mm.
has happened is, it is important, you've raised that, but what has happened is the Carney government has reintroduced it as Bill C-8.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
been modified slightly, but it is now
Okay.
Bill C-8. It's yet to go to committee. So
Okay.
I was involved in Bill C-27 at second reading. In fact, one of my colleagues was a witness for the committee for second reading, and it of course, as I said, died on the order paper. But Carney is recognized specifically. I know Carney in particular has recognized this and is now a C8 So that's that's the eighth bill introduced into the new parliament. So that's a sign of importance.
That's great information. Thanks a lot for that.
Okay, that was my initial comment, and I also totally agree with your view that you opened up with, Kristian, about your experience of testing the student, so to speak, as to whether
Yeah,
they used AI.
right.
Because actually, both myself and other colleagues I have at University of Ottawa and University of Toronto, and we're in engineering. We have talked about this, and that's exactly what we do. We make sure the student has
Good,
to present in
good,
front of other students as well, so that they
good.
get, you know what they're actually presenting stuff they learned, or they
Right.
are just mumbling because they didn't really study what they learned, or they didn't study what
Exactly.
they took extracted from the AI tool.
Exactly.
So that's my comment for now. Thank you very much.
Well, it's
Thanks.
interesting how communication skills become increasingly important in order to demonstrate that you, in fact, do know versus
Yeah.
simply something written and handed in. Randall, you want to add anything? I know I referred to you as our philosopher, but that's not,
Well,
that's
yeah, yeah. Anyway, yeah, I do have a question because we keep hearing about things like reasoning in AI and agency, and yet we hardly even know the difference between intelligence and wisdom, without artificial intelligence. But I'm wondering, for either Kristian or Ken, um, are we making progress towards artificial wisdom?
how do
I
you,
think
how do you define, just to help them a little bit, how do you
Yeah.
differentiate the two?
Okay, and I struggle with it, but it seems to be involves uh, the ability. It's like meta intelligence in a way. It's a way to use your intelligence in intelligent ways. It's goal oriented, and drawing on a wide range of experience. I'm not even convinced that it's a different category from intelligence, but just more of it. But it seems like the ability to guide your own intelligence, perhaps.
Well, is one of the differentiators there that wisdom is the proclamation of a principle that has public application? This is the big dilemma that I see in AI. We have the capacity to get at all of this knowledge that's been digitized, everything that's in a book,
Okay.
everything that's been digitized and recorded, and with the speed of light, gathering that information and bring it as an answer to the prompt. Now,
r-
what are the implications for me as a person versus us as a society? There's two different interests there. What I might have as an interest, and my interests don't necessarily relate to what is the public interest. Which side does AI lean to? Does it lead to the public interest? Is it biased toward always responding to what the individual is seeking? Kristian?
so there's two buzzwords that are coming out. There's like, those AI generative AI, and then there's AI agents, and what's coming is supposedly the new word is AGI, and then after that it's going to be called, way in the future, it's going to call ASI, artificial super intelligence. I think that's where you're talking about, where the supposedly the wisdom of the machine will out like do any human on earth, and will have all of this wisdom of everything. I don't know when that would ever take place, and that will maybe take place way in the future, but that, I think that's where the wisdom part comes in. But that is nothing something I see that's happening right now. We're way too early into the phases of that right now. That's just my opinion. But what I know that that's a good acronym, but what I know that you might want to look up is what AGI and what ASI is in the future. This is, a lot of fabrication and a lot of like misbeliefs, and I'm not going to let you know what my opinion on it is, because there's there could be a lot of misuse of what I would explain about what that is. But if you ever want to look that up, you could see what a lot of articles, what people are talking about on those two subjects.
Peter, you have anything to add here?
Yes, I just wanted to differentiate a little bit between tacit knowledge and codified knowledge. In
Yeah.
effect, all the AI solutions that we have today are basic, at least in terms of natural language processing, are basically codified knowledge. The chatbots have very limited tacit knowledge. In other words, the tacit knowledge is what we have learned through experience that isn't codified in any book or any class or any chatbot. It's the stuff that, an engineer, I should say a train engineer. This was the experience, in fact, at General Electric some years ago. They wanted to try and learn about what these train engineers, not how they learned in a book how they fix things, but how they would take a hammer, for example, and tap some part of the device. And by the sound they got, they knew what the problem was, or they knew it was okay. But that's the tacit knowledge. And that codification has not happened yet in AI. So there's still a human in the loop, so to speak.
Gotcha.
Exactly. And so that kind of brings up the question that Dale just brought up with the medical association. So like even these AI implementation softwares that were going into machine robotics, which is the biggest thing in healthcare right now. Believe it or not, China has their first AI hospital now, if you ever want to look that up. But what that is that you can get so AI, right? It's not generative. AI can generate suggestions and it can generate options, right? But the AI component is predictive analytics. So when you're feeding and you're asking diagnostics and you're asking it, this is the symptoms I have and everything, sure, it will bring you all of this great information and suggest what you should or should not do. However, you need a doctor, a specific human in the loop, a doctor of that profession to overlook it. So they have the oversight. So it's saving the doctor a lot of times, maybe some things that he might have missed or didn't think of, and it's giving suggestions. It's just saving time. Remember what we're doing right now is what AI is really doing is saving time for generative AI. But you must have a human oversight, a specialist, a doctor in that field to overlook it before the final say. And so that's how AI is used right now in the medical profession, which I agree on. It does help a lot, and it gives great suggestions, and it saves time and work. So I think I'm all for that, actually.
When AI's Watson first emerged and this discussion became public,
Mhm.
IBM, interested in sales, of course, maintained that the future was AI as an aid, not as an alternative. I think one of the primary issues is, did IBM get it wrong? Is AI superintelligence, wherever we're headed, taking us into space where AI is much more than an aid, or accepted as much more of an aid? I mean, is it the client or the person's decision whether to accept it as an alternative? Because many are. The doctors will tell you today that patients coming into their offices are different than they were 5 years ago. They have researched their affliction. They come to the office with their own diagnosis, and they are asking the doctor for validation. Doctors, to an extent, appreciate that because the person is now a partner, but sometimes they have to redirect them to other evidence. But the doctor may not be up to date as the patient actually is about what's current. It's a fascinating dilemma we're in. Jeff, you want to add anything here?
Well, so you're talking about ethics and artificial intelligence, and I would say that most of the genre, or a large part of the genre of science fiction, going all the way back to Frankenstein and Metropolis, Isaac Asimov's books, Robert Heinlein and The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, Philip K. Dick talking about Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and also like in the comics, the Jarvis character in Iron Man. All of this stuff
Yeah.
has been discussed before. And for a positive view on that, I think of Robert J. Sawyer's Wake, Watch, and Wonder series, which is pretty, it shows how AI can be our basically a help for us. And so that's the thing that we're seeing. Are we going to be heading towards an age of abundance, as Peter Diamandis likes to talk about, or are we going to be living in a dystopia like the Terminator series? Or it's easy to imagine authoritarians taking this technology and eliminating people's rights, and generals on the battlefield eliminating humans from the loop, and all of a sudden AI becomes this killing machine. I think that the United States right now, their policy is that before a kill order can be made, they have to have a human actually make the decision to fire.
Yeah,
but I'm not sure that all of the different nations around the world are going with that kind of ethics. So
Ethics in war, an interesting question. Mel?
I guess I'd first of all like to say that thanks for the insight here, Ken and Kristian. It's been great. You've made a couple of comments, and one of them, Kristian, you were talking about responsible AI. Will we ever get to a point where an AI can exercise self-governance? Just like, 100 years ago when they had engines, they put governors in them so they wouldn't exceed a certain speed. Will an AI get to a point where it comes up with an action response, and before it essentially gets it out, it determines somehow whether it's the thing to do or not? If we look at agentic AI, for example, if I make a comparison to showing the millions of pictures of cats to an AI, it soon gets to know what a cat looks like. But if you throw one dog in there and it calls that dog a cat, that decision isn't really bad. But if it is in an autonomous vehicle and it comes to a no left turn signal, and it makes a right turn instead, that could be catastrophic. So the nature of the decisions. I guess the other one is a comment that Ken made, that it's no longer just a tool. There's a book called The Alignment Problem by Brian Christian. He writes about human implications of computer science. And one of the things in there is that an AI can get to a point where it essentially will, and it's doing it now, generating some code to execute something that has been requested of it. And we could look at Nick Bostrom, for example, with the famous paperclip problem, where he hypothesized that you give an AI a problem to make paper clips and make as many as possible. And the AI essentially starts doing that, and it starts using every bit of material that it can find to put it together at the destruction of humanity. So when you look at that type of thing, where are the guidelines and the walls that kind of prevent it from going over them too fast? I don't know if we actually talked about that a whole lot, but one of the things I found kind of unnerving about, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, I was playing with one of these things. When I say playing, I'm literally playing and maybe trying to understand how far I can push it. I saw this thing say that it was generating Python code. And it was doing that to come up with a way to iterate to get to a response or an answer that there was no straight mathematical way of doing it. And this was when all of the AI providers were saying that these AIs can do math and all of that type of stuff. So my point, I guess, really is that you don't know what's going on under the covers. We know what's coming out, but when we get that, we definitely have to exercise some critical thinking before applying it. How does the AI apply, or will it ever be able to apply critical thinking before it affects what its decision has just been formulated to be?
Right. So that's very good. Now, what I would suggest there is that everything that you said there is that definitely still need, in the age that we are living in and the knowledge that we have, that you need human in the loop to make you need to train the model and train the fine tune the model and the algorithm to make sure that when it's time to have empathy call or human intervention, or some type of personal agency, or something that's very high risk, like you said, a self-driving car, that should know when to stop to ask the human's input to go further. So you can have these AI agents. Some of them can be actually dangerous in the sense that if you're developing it to do it on high risk projects, how do you know it's actually doing what it's supposed to do? Now, you can create these AI agents, which is great, but make sure that the workflow, it stops where it's supposed to stop. So it has that human input to say, okay, I agree, or no, go back, or this looks good, or just stop, right? So that's where I see that happening. Now, AI, where I see it as today, and it will be only generative AI doing this. Again, is generative AI is generating things, is generating suggestions and improvements and ideas. What you said, how can it go into critical thinking? Can it create a workflow that is 100% secure and everything? What I firmly believe is that that will happen in the future, but through quantum computing and through the help of AI with quantum computing. Now, that's something that's going to be coming out a lot in the next 5 years. But with that super, super, super intelligence, like you're talking like the most craziest thing that's going to come out is this quantum computing machines, but they're also going to be utilizing AI within it. So with that, with those two hand in hand, when you talk about in the future of creativity and making workflows like a self-driving car to make sure they pinpoint every single aspect of it, that's where I see it has a chance to. Now that's my belief, and that's what I think. But good questions though.
Yeah, the definition of knowing when in fact critical thinking is being employed
Yeah.
is a fascinating one. And I take you back to the dilemma that I have of how does AI rationalize what is in the public versus what is in the personal interest? It has to in some way demonstrate some bias in some manner. And is it the public's interest that it's primarily oriented to, or is it the personal? And I don't know how that gets resolved, but that's where critical thinking in some way has to step in. Bogdan, you've got a point or a question you wish to raise.
Yeah, I kept making notes, so I'm not sure which one to take. So I'm gonna raise first the issue with going too fast. Yeah, in systems theory, there is that in the controls theory, there is that theorem, the Nyquist theorem. Yeah, you, in order to be able to control a process, you, the controller, you need to be at least twice as fast as the item you want to control, the entity you want to control. And with the development of AI, I think we have lost the Nyquist perspective. Yeah. Trivially, AI it's much faster than humans, and humans individually are faster than groups of humans, organizations, and forums, and so. So, from a Nyquist perspective, we need to seriously slow down the development and the application process. So on the going too fast and issues of regulations that would slow down or handle the difference in speed, we have a big challenge.
And not only a big one, a financial one. I mean, it's one.
So yeah, and we have the big battle. And remember that I'm a person that escaped the communist regime, looking at capitalism as the future. But we have the challenge of motivation, profit as motivation versus societal stability as motivation.
My point, exactly. Peter, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. A comment I'd like to make and open for discussion, particularly the two speakers. I believe that the fundamental need in both building AI systems, which again talking about the chatbots at this stage, but AI systems in general in the future as well. So the fundamental need is in building these, as well as those who use these systems. So let's call it mission critical uses like managing power systems, water supply, etc. That one should concentrate on integrity as opposed to ethics. Because integrity is to the human soul. It's that little thing in your whispers in your ear when you know you might be cheating. It's the anima. It's the psyche of the human being. That's common to everyone. Either they have it or they don't. And ethics, of course, is a way we manifest are cultural views about how we relate to each other, and good and bad in that sense. But I think the fundamental base is integrity. And that should be, for example, when you're hiring people to develop these systems or to control these kinds of applications of those systems, that you ask questions about their integrity, not about ethics. Ethics is separate. It's about culture. You take the trolley car problem as an example. Think of it as one of the many scenarios we need to develop for applications of AI. The trolley car problem in the West versus the trolley car problem in the East, where you have an autonomous vehicle that is going to either hit an adult on one of the lanes or a child on the other lane. Which does it hit? That's based on ethics. In the East, it would hit the child. In the West, it would hit the adult. How does the AI know that?
That's my point of the public interest as the East would see it versus the personal interest as the West would see it. The value that we attribute to a human being is a value. That value is not the same value in every culture, nor is it the same value in every person, because a psychopath has a different value set than me. Kristian?
That's not integrity, you see.
It's not integrity. It's value.
Integrity is what I was talking about. That's what we need to use as a fundamental measure here, I think.
Well, in democracy, Jeff and I were just commenting this on the chat on the side. In democracy, you'll use the majority. They will tell you what's right, what's truth, what's best. And we use an election or in a democracy to determine which way we want to go. Whether it's right or wrong, we'll accept what the majority rules on, or that the president who's been elected has to say. Another issue. Kristian, you're going to get the last word because our time is up. So I'm going to ask you to do the wrap up here.
Sure. Just wanted to let you know is that, well, this is a great talk at this time, but ChatGPT 5 is now out, so you could probably play around with that now. I just checked it and it's there. So that was some good homework. It just came out.
That was what Sam Altman was indicating. It would probably come out today, and it was also going to have incorporated that sensitivity to empathy versus providing direction. So take a look, take a gander.
Yeah.
We've just begun the journey. This was episode number 1 of an 8-episode series. The next series will be about business intelligence and profiting, AI and corporate strategy and finance, with Joellen Desai, Brent Duncan, Rachel Lemon, who many of you knew as she was a star in our youth series, and Emerson Sorda. So join us August 14th on the profiting webinar, and that will be followed by 6 others after that. So any questions, send me an email. This webinar will be up and recorded. It'll be up on YouTube before the night is out. So thank you, Kristian, very much. Thank you, Ken. And thank you, all of you who timed in today and contributed to this rich first episode.